Hi everyone, this is your girl Rachel P. Haluag. So for today's video, we are going to discuss multicultural curriculum. Before we discuss about this curriculum, we will first define what is multicultural. So multicultural simply means different culture. This curriculum aims to promote cultural literacy and cultural understanding. When we say cultural literacy and cultural understanding, these refer to the ability to understand, appreciate, and navigate the diverse cultural contexts, values, and practices. Schools use different strategies and approaches to develop cultural literacy and promote cultural understanding. Some schools use different activities such as role plays na mag-use of different languages, or of course scenarios na naay mga characters that have diverse religion or cultures. So when we say multicultural curriculum, it refers to a curriculum that merge or incorporate diverse perspectives, experiences, and of course culture into education. Na po field trips sa uban na places wherein na ay or lahi ang culture sa uban yung students. Naapod sa literature ng subject, there are authors who have different beliefs based on their culture. Now, according to Banks, there are 5 dimensions that school could adopt or use when trying to implement a multicultural curriculum. First, we have the content integration. I guess some of us are familiar with content integration. In layman's terms, this dimension deals with the extent to which teachers use examples or content from a variety of cultures. Just like what I have said earlier, the teacher teaches about literature. So of course, the teacher will show different authors that have different cultures. This is focused on literature with a hint of course, multicultural curriculum. The second dimension is the knowledge construction process. In this dimension, teachers use different strategies, methods, and activities to help the students to understand, investigate, and determine cultural assumptions, frames of reference, perspectives, and biases within a discipline influence the ways in which knowledge constructed. In layman's terms, the teacher helps the student to realize that the constructed knowledge is based on how they assume things or how different the references are, and of course, the biases. The third dimension is prejudice reduction. It refers to the strategies that can be used to help students develop their democratic attitude and values. For me, prejudice reduction is somehow not included in 5 dimensions because I could say that this dimension is like a result of having or implementing multicultural curriculum into education. So more of like as a result siya instead of being a dimension. The fourth dimension is equity pedagogy. Exists on teachers modify their teaching in ways that will facilitate the academic achievement of students from diverse racial, cultural, ethnic, and gender groups. So in simpler terms, teachers use different strategies that will facilitate and accommodate each and every student regardless of their races, culture, and beliefs. The fifth and the last dimension is an empowering school culture and social structure. This is very understandable. It means restructuring, remaking of the culture and organization of the school so the students from diverse racial ethnic groups will experience equality. Safe space ni siya, kumbaga. Now we are done with 5 dimensions of Banks. We will proceed to Bennett's 6 goals of multicultural curriculum. I will give the definition one by one in simpler terms for you to understand it easily. Let's start with number 1. According to Bennett, the first goal of implementing multicultural curriculum into education is develop multiple historical perspectives This is to understand history from different viewpoints, not just one. Number 2 is strengthen cultural consciousness. This simply means appreciate and respect diverse cultures. Third goal is strengthen intercultural competence. This means effectively communicating and interacting with people from various backgrounds. Fourth goal, combat racism, sexism, and other forms of prejudice and discrimination. This simply means fight racism, sexism, and other unfair biases. Fifth, increase awareness of the state of the planet and global dynamics. This means understanding environmental issues and global connections. The sixth and the last is build social action skills. It is to develop skills to create foster change in your community. So that or those goals are very sabotable. No need to explain it deeper.
Good day, everyone. This is Altero Soltergad, and I'll be discussing to you the Indigenous curriculum, which is next to the multicultural curriculum, which was discussed earlier by teacher Rachel. So, Indigenous curriculum. Do you have any idea what is Indigenous itself? Alright, so let us define Indigenous first before we will discuss further about what is Indigenous curriculum. Right? Indigenous are the people inhabiting or existing in a land from the earliest times or from before the arrival of colonists. So these people are actually the people of the earliest times that has certain unique culture and traditions. So it says here before the arrival of colonists. So understandably, if there would be colonists, so these colonizers has certain traditions inflicted to us, and with that, our original cultures were somehow overpowered by those cultures brought to us by the colonizers. About Indigenous curriculum. The idea of an Indigenous curriculum was a product of a vision to make curriculum relevant and responsive to the needs and context of Indigenous people. So when we say Indigenous, so as a teacher, if we will be having this Indigenous curriculum, so we will have to, when teaching, we would have to discuss certain traditions or cultures upheld by the Indigenous people, so that some of our students who are, if say for example we have Indigenous students, would be able to relate for those students that are not really Indigenous, or they would be able to see and learn about that particular context of Indigenous people. It links the curriculum with the society's culture and history. So as what I have mentioned earlier, it talks about the arrival before the arrival of colonists. So before the arrival of colonists, our these people, this certainly called Indigenous people, has already has its own unique culture, and with that, we are, by studying or by having the Indigenous curriculum, we are able to look back to our past, the society's culture and history. Indigenous curriculum. The idea of an Indigenous curriculum was a product of vision to make curriculum relevant and responsive to the needs and context of Indigenous people. So basically, this Indigenous curriculum aims for cultural preservation. Why? Because what was I have mentioned earlier, Indigenous are those people that has existed or inhabited a place right before the arrival of the colonists. So again, these people has its own culture right before the arrival of colonizers, and over time somehow these cultures has vanished along the way, and through having the Indigenous curriculum, we are able to somehow preserve the culture. So it links the curriculum with the society's culture and history. So yes, because we would be discussing, or you would be creating examples about history. So with that, you are able to link the society's culture and history. And we have it values the importance of integrating Indigenous knowledge system of the people. If we as a teacher we were able to incorporate the Indigenous curriculum, then we are able to give value and importance of their culture by integrating it in the way we teach the students. Authors, the earlier studies on Indigenous curriculum provided a framework for linking Indigenous knowledge with the curriculum and provided several dimensions to serve as a framework for the development of an Indigenous curriculum. So here are the steps somehow or tips of a framework for the development of the Indigenous curriculum. So first we have the development, because of course if you are to develop a certain concept, so there would be that question, what inspired you to do that? What inspired you to study this? Diba? So these experiences and views played a great role with how those concepts, scientific knowledge were developed. So we also have use instructional strategies that promote academic success for children of different cultures. As a future teacher, educator, we utilize different instructional strategies. This is because again, going back as what we have discussed every day, we do have different kind of students. So with while through using different instructional strategies, we are able to cater their listening styles, their listening strategies that would promote each of their academic success. Utilize communities' cultural, material, and human resources. So what do we mean by that? In the development and implementation of the other curriculum. So, of course, in the development of and implementation of the curriculum, it's better to utilize the community's cultural, material, and human resources. Why do you think it is? Because of course, those are the basic units of society. The community's cultural, material, and human resources as well. So specifically, Indigenous curriculum may consider using and implementing the following strategies at school level. So of course, we will proceed to school level strategies because this is about curriculum. So first is we have integrating contents and activities that reflect the learner's culture, history, traditions, and Indigenous knowledge on the curriculum. So it's very important that we integrate our activities so that students can reflect its own culture, history, and tradition, as well as of course the Indigenous knowledge itself. So using the local language as the medium of instruction for several subjects like math, science, social studies, physical education, and home economics, and livelihood education. So local language, so yes, that's what we call the mother tongue base, and that's actually been applied to the lower years, the primary education. They were utilizing the local language as their mode of delivering their instructions. There in books, it could be that they were using English language, but how the teachers deliver the lesson, they can utilize the local language for an easier understanding for both the teacher, easier communication for both the teacher and the students. So we also have involving community folks and local teachers in the development of the curriculum. So of course, there are a lot of people involved in a curriculum, and it's very and it is an advantage if we would involve the whole community folks like the teachers, and we could also include the local officials as well for that, right? So we have developing local instructional materials and learning outside the classroom by utilizing various community resources that are available for conducting observations and investigation. So local instructional materials. So of course, these local instructional materials are those learning materials that were using the local language for it to be easier understood by people. So earlier we discussed about how the local language is used for delivering instruction, but this time it's learning outside the classroom. So it's better if we will be using the local instructional materials for easier understanding. So we have the fifth is using the instructional strategies that are relevant to Indigenous learning system. We are in the Indigenous curriculum, then might as well utilize the strategies that are aligned to how we can learn effectively.
Since we are done with multicultural curriculum and the other curriculum, we will now discuss brain-based education. What is brain-based education? It refers or focuses on teaching methods aligned with how our brains learn best. Prominent advocates in brain-based education, Kane and Kane 1997, considered curriculum and instruction from a brain-based approach. They begin with brain-mind learning principles derived from brain research findings and apply these principles in the classroom and in designing a curriculum. These principles are: first, the brain is a whole system and includes physiology, emotions, imagination, and predisposition. This must all be considered as a whole. The brain as a whole system. Our brain works best when our body, emotions, imagination, and experiences are considered. Our body and our mind is like a car. We have the engine for our body, fuel for our emotions, navigation for our imagination, and driver for our experiences. We have here the second. The brain develops in relationships to interactions with the environment and with others. Our brain grows and learns through the environment we are in, social connections, and of course, experiences. The third is a quality of being human is the search for personal meaning. So, this ends my part. Althea will continue the reporting. That would be all. Thank you.
Alright, so thank you so much for that, Teacher Rachel. So now we will proceed to the fourth principle in the brain-based curriculum. So the fourth one says here, people create meaning through perceiving certain patterns of understanding. So of course in brain-based, if we are able to study, or if we are trying to study some certain information, some figures, if we are able to perceive some certain patterns, then we were able to create meaning na, okay, mao din ni siya, dari ang mga color red, dari ang circles. It depends. There were patterns for using the colors, the shapes, how it was arranged, if it's alternate or not. Even so, if we were trying to study for our exams, if we are trying to memorize some information that needs to be enumerated, we try to create or have our own abbreviation or acronym of those informations, right? So we have the fifth one, emotions are critical to the patterns people perceive. So emotions, yes, that's very critical to the patterns of how people perceive, because I always believe that emotions are very crucial as to how we were able to perceive some information. So say for example, if you were happy, so of course those informations I can absorb it properly, and if I'm not in the mood, then I would like pawalaan ko gana. So of course emotions, yes, emotion really matters. So we have the sixth one, which is the brain processes information into both parts and wholes at the same time. And we also have the seventh, which is learning includes both focus, attention, and peripheral input. So what do we mean by that? Focus, attention, meaning we really intended to learn, so we pay attention, we focus, and while peripheral input is about incidental learning, meaning it's not intentional that you were trying to learn, but somehow along the process you learn something. Yes? So that's all for our discussion with Teacher Rachel, which is the multicultural curriculum, Indigenous, and the brain-based education. And hopefully you have learned something from our report. See you guys!